Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Mysticsense series on psychic development. Today with us is Lillibeth from Mysticsense. Before we dive into our topic, could you please share a little bit about yourself and your spiritual practice?
Sure. So my name is Lillibeth. I'm extension number 2987 on Mystic Sense. I am innately a clairsentient and clairvoyant, which basically means that when you see those movies and they say, I see dead people, it's because I can see them in my mind's eye and I can also hear them speaking to me. I've been doing this since I was about 8 or 9 years old. I'm very fortunate to come from a line of psychics in my own family. And what we try to do is just help people figure out what their inner balance is, whether that's through somebody that's passed on or someone that's coming in, and just how your energy's working for you that day.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
So our first question is how can individuals open and activate their third eye chakra for enhanced psychic ability?
Okay, so I love that we're starting off this way. Just in reference to the way that I've learned, right? I believe everybody's third eye is already activated, which I know is a little contrary to popular belief because we're supposed to be here to, resonate with all of our chakras and get everything in line. Ooh, bless you. But honestly, when you think about your third eye, what you really want to think about is what your connection is to your actual intuition and what your inner voice is telling you. So one of the great ways that I've learned to work on that is actually through a grounding exercise. And essentially all you have to do is put your feet on the ground, put your hands palm face down on the top of your thighs, and just take a couple deep breaths in. When you're doing that, you want to see where you actually feel your breath going, right? For some people, it's going to be in their chest. Other people, it's going to be in their throat or in their stomach. Not very often will you feel it in your fingertips, but I do get a couple people that I do work with that feel it there, which are typically my friends that can sense energy versus understand what it is. But with that being said, once you start to really slow your breath down and figure out where that energy point center is for you, what you can start to do is learn the difference between what your anxiety is versus what your intuition is telling you. A lot of times for people, your intuition is actually what you feel in your stomach versus your anxiety, which you're going to feel closer to your heart or sometimes right in your throat. And as you continue to work through that and breathe through that, you're able to identify exactly what your intuition is or your third eye, right? So in different cultures or different levels of understanding, you start placing that to say, oh, that's my third eye, when really it's just our ability to connect with whatever our higher source is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, wonderful. I love that exercise. I've never heard about that before, but
Mm-hmm.
I like how it brings awareness to where you're feeling things.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing when you're doing any type of psychic work or psychic development that you really want to pay attention to is that awareness. Because, again, at least in my experience, you're going to have people with two very extreme places of thought. You have people that believe everything is a sign and everything's a coincidence, or you have people that it's like, that could be, but maybe there's logic behind it. And for me, the way I've grown up is that everything is connected in one sort of way, but it can be backed up by the logic. Logic being your ability to understand the information that's given to you. Where it gets a little fuzzy is figuring out where is that information coming from, right? And everybody is human, so however you want to define that. And everybody has an emotional source that we're all connected from, right? And that then puts you in the universal energy or our universal connectedness that we all kind of grab information from and have this collective consciousness and then understand how to bleed from there what is our emotion based on our previous experience, and then what is the emotion tied to whatever our collective energy is, right? So don't discount whatever type of sensation you're getting on your body, or if you have a dream, or if you sense something like your fingers all of a sudden start to tingle. I'm going to reference that a few times, or like for me when my ear pops, it's just to let you know that there's a change in the energy you need to pay attention to. But
Very interesting.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's interesting because the third eye isn't necessarily like right here.
Yes.
Like, so it's different for each person how they experience it.
Absolutely. It kind of goes back to the whole idea of our religion, right? It, at least from where I'm sitting, it's important to have a belief in some sort of, I don't want to say alternative power, but something that is beyond yourself, whether that's God for you or Allah or whoever it's going to be for anybody, right? Because that gives you the ability to separate from yourself and separate from your past experiences to try and look at things from an objective perspective. And then once you're doing that, that's when you're able to really understand that there are different opportunities to pull in information from your guides, from your angels, from whatever it is you believe in, to then have it resonate with you. So there's really no right or wrong way to do something. Let's see. Sorry, my cat's going to come up. But there's no right or wrong way to do any of that. It's just about believing yourself in what you're actually receiving and knowing that what you do receive is true to how you understand it. So bananas to me might have a different message than they do for you, but as long as you're taking away your preconceived notion for what it is, you're able to be successful with the intuition work.
Yeah, that's so important to not have that preconceived idea, because that I feel like that's a big blockage for a lot of people. They expect
Absolutely.
something and it comes, but it doesn't come in the way that they expect it to.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes, excellent. So our next question is, what exercises and meditations are effective for opening the third eye chakra?
Okay. So if you don't mind me altering that question just a little bit, just after what we touched on with the third eye, um, for me personally, I'm just going to interchange that with using your intuition and being able to open up your gifts a little bit more, right? So my ability to hear or connect to what I'm trying to go through. You really want to start with that grounding exercise, right? Where you put both your feet flat on the floor, you take the palms of your hands, you put them on the tops of your thighs, and you just take a couple deep breaths. One of the things that I like to do if I don't have a moment to quiet my mind, if I'm going through a high stress situation and I want to hear my intuition, like, oh my God, I got to get to this appointment. My GPS isn't working because, of course, that thing's never connected to my car the right way. And I'm driving. Do I take a right? Do I take a left? Okay. Uh-oh. How do I figure that out? Actually, let me ask one of my guides. Take a deep breath in, really quick. Doesn't matter if it's through your nose or your mouth. And what I like to do is just focus on a color in my brain. Does not matter what color it is, because what you're trying to do is pull your focus from your fear to your intuition, because everybody's connected to their intuition at all times. There's never one point where you're not. So the notion that you have to do some, Hail Mary or whatever it is to pull them down, you don't need to, because we're always there. It's about learning to quiet your mind. So for me, I like to think of the color hot pink. Why? I don't know. It's just one of my favorite colors from when I was a kid. Hyper focus on it. And then whatever sensation you're getting, whether it's in your ear, in your mind's eye, your eyes flicker to a certain way, or you see a license plate in front of you saying like R1, like, so take a right. It's being aware of your surroundings and just hyper focusing on that color in order to not be distracted by the fear. Does that make sense? I know I'm probably
That's
throwing a lot at you all at once.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Oh,
That's a really interesting way to connect with the intuition. I like it because it's almost like a key. If you're not familiar with the term key in a spiritual sense,
yeah,
it's an item, or it's a color, something external that is like it taps you in. It's like unlocking that door to your intuition, and you can really program anything to be a key for you.
right.
But it's using that color, that focal point as a key to access that state. Um, and I like that that way of accessing that intuition in a quick, maybe stressful environment or
Yeah,
situation. It's fast, it's simple, it's easy. Um,
right.
yeah, that's a great exercise.
Yeah. Another
Yeah,
really good exercise I like to use too is what I call tapping, or like a lot of other people tap. I used to play piano as a kid, so I always had that nervous tick. But again, if you're able to pull your focus from something that you can identify, you want one or two consistent things, right? I don't want you going pink and then blue another minute. Or if you're going to tap, you do 3, 2, 2, 4. Like for me, that's always an easy thing because that was one of the last four numbers for my great grandma, who I was very close to. 3, 2, 2, 4. If I just keep doing that a couple times, it almost like hypnotizes your brain to hyper focus onto what you're trying to get away from. So then you have that consistent thing to always go back to. And if you believe in your mind that if you do something, it's going to consistently give you a certain outcome, you're more likely to automatically get into that mindset of, okay, my intuition's here, and guess what? I can trust it. I'm sorry, it's great. So,
yeah, those are some great exercises to try. And I encourage everyone to try these things out because no, I'm getting tongue twisted.
there's nowhere to say that might be automatic staking. Don't take it. Don't worry. Yep.
It's Yeah, not every method is going to work for every person. And that's the
Right.
beauty of spirituality. That's why we have so many different exercises, so many different methods, because we're not meant to do them all. There is something that will work for everyone, but not every exercise is going to be that one that works for everyone.
Right.
So I encourage people to try all of them, at least once. And if it doesn't work, that's
Absolutely.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and go ahead and try the next one until you find the one that really works for you well. Whether it's tapping or the color, or like I have an exercise that I use to access intuition is I actually work with the seven chakra point. Um,
Okay. And
I
that's great.
will, yeah, and that's the thing is it's not one size fits all, and that's
Right.
all spirituality. You know, even divination tools. We have so many because not everyone resonates to everything. Um,
Right.
so so in my way of accessing it is I imagine a little door on the chakras, and I
Okay.
open that door. You know, like literally unlocking the door and opening it. And I do that
Okay.
on my third eye and my crown.
Oh, that's wonderful that you can be so visual. Like for
Yeah,
me, I know that's a little more difficult, but see, that exactly to your point. It just it's whatever fits you or whatever resonates.
exactly. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
am very visual, and not everyone is, but you know I am, so that's what works for me. And I imagine a little door opening, and then I imagine this like stream of white light coming from source, and that's the intuition, that's the spiritual guidance coming through the crown and through the third eye, so that I receive it, and and that's how I open myself, and then I
Mhm.
do the reverse to close it again. 'Cause-
That's wonderful.
oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Big leap. Yeah, but no, and everybody has a different method. So we've just shared three techniques that people can try out, and hopefully one of these techniques will work great for you. Um, and there are unlimited other techniques you can try as well. You know, this is not the end.
Right. And if you want help trying to figure out one of those other techniques that are a little bit more tailored to you, please again just feel free to find me on Mysticsense, and I'm more than happy to work with my guides to help you figure out your best way. Well,
Absolutely,
yes.
yes. And you will be linked in the description of this video as well. Your profile and your
Even
name is
easier.
Lillibeth right there. So go ahead and head over to mysticsense.com, search her name, and there you go. You can talk all about spiritual development, these other techniques. There's so many techniques, you
Yeah,
know.
it really is incredible.
Yeah. And in one podcast isn't going to cover all of it either because, you know,
Right.
everybody's so unique. So definitely, you know, take what we share here today, try it out. If it doesn't work, go ahead and connect with Lillibeth on Mystic Sense, and find out a technique that specifically works for you. Wonderful. So our next question is let's discuss the role of intuition versus inner vision in developing psychic ability. This is a really interesting question.
Yes. Actually, I'm going to, if you don't mind, do a little exercise with you. How do you define the two?
How do I define what?
How do you define intuition versus intuition?
This was a tough question for me, honestly. I read it and I was like, oh, this is hard because I tend to think of intuition, but I'm clairvoyant, so I'm very visual. So I
Yep.
tend to see it as the visions. But thinking about it, and they kind of put me on the spot, but that's okay. Thinking
No, see, what
about
I'm
it,
trying to do is why don't we use one of the exercises beforehand? Let's see what your guides tell you.
yes. Oh,
Right?
that's a good technique.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I actually the thing that came to me is that the inner vision would be more imagination to me,
Okay.
whereas the intuition is like that spark that it just pops in your head and it like hits you in the face. You have no idea where it comes from. And
Okay.
I wouldn't say inner vision would be more like pro interactive or proactive. Like I would be thinking about it, I'd be imagining it, you know, in my head. Um, whereas the intuition isn't a thought for me; it just comes, and it just is there.
Okay.
Um, and I don't really feel like it's as active. I feel like it's more passive, whereas the inner vision would be a more active. Um,
So I really like how you're talking about the active versus passive aspect of it, right? So the way that I understand intuition, that to me is more about your ability to plug into whatever the universal consciousness is. So just to revert back really quick to that, universal consciousness is the energy that connects every single thing in the entire, universe, existence, whatever you want to call it, whether that is here on Earth or if you believe in interplanetary connections or, in a more simple form, talking to somebody who's passed on, like a grandma or a child or a pet, whoever isn't in a physical form with us now, to our physical form, to someone who's beyond us, right? So it's our ability to pick up that spiritual phone and say, hello, who's there? What's going on? If it's my guide, angel, does not matter. Versus my inner vision, right? My inner vision, when I turn into somebody else, that to me is what you're projecting your own energy outwards to be. So do you want to be a psychic tomorrow? Do you want to be a construction worker in 4 years from now? Do you want to be a multimillionaire in the next 28 hours and lose it all in 15 minutes because we have a negative thought pattern that's going on? That to me is what the inner vision is being projected out, right? Because your inner vision is whatever you see as your reality versus what you know being your intuition based on what is happening around you and what's happening within you. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. I like that the perception is what creates the reality, and that's our vision.
Right.
Whereas
Well, we
the
have to be a little
intuition.
careful with how we put that, right? Because there are
Okay.
certain perceptions that we do have that are not going to necessarily become a reality. And a lot of that has to do with the agreement you make before coming onto this particular incarnation or reincarnation. I'm probably using the wrong word, but basically in this particular life that you're living, what did you agree to do before coming here? Which is also tied into like the skills that you have or the abilities you have and who you interact with and why you interact with them and how that's going to happen. Because at least from what I understand, doing as many readings as I have and why I'm able to help with psychic development and reconnecting and just understanding what the future projection is of a person is based on a spiral of a timeline that everybody lives on, right? And each timeline is going to be a little different. But there are these certain tick marks on this timeline that you're meant to have happen to you in your lifetime in order to help you get to a place of spiritual awakening or spiritual growth, right? Because what we're here to really do is get our vibrational energy to improve or to expand and then help further exchange that with other people or other life forms in order to have a universal consciousness that is then elevated so we can all live on the same plane. Now, going back to the earlier statement, the tick marks are things that were meant to have happen to us no matter what. So no matter what I'm projecting, if I'm supposed to be a psychic artist, right, for the rest of my life, that's something that I agreed to do. How do I get to that end goal? Well, you have to go through these different steps in order to get there. Now we have free will, we have all this fun stuff, but that's in between each one of these tick marks, right? So during that time, it's kind of like the summer when you're going to school. You have classes that you're supposed to take, but then the summer you have a little bit of a break. That's when we want to work on our psychic development. That's when we want to take and see what lessons we learned and how do we apply those to different things before the next step or the next process comes in our life. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's a
Okay.
little complicated for me, but
Sorry.
no, it's interesting. It actually reminds me a bit of a past life regression technique.
Okay.
I had talked about that in the past life regression episode, which was a couple
Really? Okay.
or months back. But it reminds me because of how you say it's like a timeline with the tick marks, and I know that comes up a lot with past life regression is your soul contract and the things you're meant to do in this
Yeah.
lifetime and your past lifetime, and it's interesting looking at that same concept in a future tense.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Um,
Thank you for being open to the conversation. That's half the battle with anything, especially even just going back to psychic development. It's just about the willingness to be open minded and hear it out. Right? Doesn't mean you have to agree with
right.
everything. Because do not agree with everything, because that would not help with any type of growth. But just being open to it. So thank you for that receptivity.
Yes, absolutely. It's very different from my thoughts, but that's a beautiful thing because
Mm-hmm.
we're constantly evolving and growing,
Right.
and that's what's great about having the Mystic Sense series is everybody does it differently, and
Absolutely.
and that's why we're all here to share how we do it our way.
Right.
So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. So cool. It's so
So
fun.
yes, so what are the differences between psychic abilities like clairvoyance, clairseeing, and clairaudience, clear hearing, and I'm sure there's many others as well.
So the nutshell version of this answer would simply just be the way that you interpret whatever the message is getting sent to you. Right. So for me, when I first started out, my ear, like right now, if I start calling my guides down as they're trying to be like, excuse me, Julie, it's Lillibeth, my friend, what are we doing? Excuse me. Because I'll give you a different name too. That's the funny part. I have one guide that calls me Jillian. I have another that calls me Lillibeth. And I have two that call me Sam. And I assume that they're all connected to past lives. But whether I know, I don't, I just know if one's coming forward, they're saying that name, I know to respond to them in that type of way. But to say they're coming down now. For me personally, I used to start out, my ear would pop. Kind of like when you're in an airplane and the elevation's changing, it'll start popping to let me know, hey, there are people present. You might want to start taking one of your bubbles down, your auras down, in order to allow them to come in. And then just start to communicate with them in that type of way. From there, I'll get the pop to let me know, okay, I need to focus my mind, think of my color, do whatever I'm doing, to then start seeing in my head or start knowing, which is like a clear cognizance of information that I normally wouldn't. So works really great on trivia if anybody wants to have a cool parlor trick. But if you just start asking the question, they'll start giving you that information. I know you mentioned that you're clairvoyant, right? So you can see the information. Um, a good way to try and determine whether or not you have a certain inclination to a gift, right? And do not take it like the gift is good or bad, because if you can hear it, that's no better than someone who can see it, taste it, smell it, feel it, sense it, just know it. It's all the same. It's just about how much you want to use that muscle, right? If you take a passage that is meant to be very descriptive, like if I, for example, look at a table and I say to you, we're sitting at a table. I have a hot cup of tea to the right of me. The hot cup of tea has, steam coming out of it. There are little droplets of water spraying everywhere. The scent wafts through the air of persimmons and honey, and this amber type of colored liquid continues to bubble on the top as it's being poured from another glass to something else. As you hear that type of thing, what do you experience? Do you smell the tea? Do you see the tea? Can you feel how hot the tea is on your tongue? Or can you see the words? Right? If you're going through little exercises like that where you're reading something to then sense and feel and understand what that passage is that's supposed to describe something, so look up descriptive writings or descriptive passages, you can kind of identify what the first sense is that you're picking up that information on, or you're able to connect with that information on. So then once you start, closing your mind down and starting to ask yourself pointed questions, whether that's, who are my guides? Or what should I do next Thursday? Or is this pharmaceutical exam the right thing for me to take? Asking yourself those questions, you can start to interpret that information the same way that you understood the passage, right? Does that make sense? I know I speak fast sometimes.
Yeah, I
But
really like that technique. I completely agree on that. That has helped me a lot when I was developing my abilities. It's like when I was reading books or something, it's like, how am I experiencing them? Am I seeing it?
Yep.
Am I smelling it? Am I tasting it? Am I feeling it?
Yep.
Um, how is it coming to me? And I think that is a wonderful first step to developing, whether it's claircognizance, clairvoyance. And I also want to say that if maybe you are very strongly clairaudient and you hear the things, but you're not really clairvoyant at all, you don't really see much, you can develop that
Right.
clairvoyance.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean you can't ever do it, but if you're starting out, it might be easier to start with the more dominant trait. But that doesn't
Absolutely.
mean you're limited to that.
And also too, just to expand on that, if you start doing these type of exercises and you're not experiencing a reaction to it immediately, that does not mean you're doing something wrong. It just means that it takes a little bit more time, kind of like learning how to ride a bike. You're not gonna. Some people might get it the first try, and lucky them, because I was not one of them. But it's okay to have to get on that bike a couple times and keep going through it before you really start to notice anything. And when you do start to notice a certain sensation or hear a word or see a word or whatever way it is you're going to interpret the message being sent to you, trust it, right? Because that was a big trouble that I had when I first started, was the lack of trust that I had in what was being provided. And the crazier it sounds or the wackier it sounds, as long as it is connected to what you are asking the question on, right? Because we do need to just make sure that we're paying attention to mental health versus, intuitive information coming through. You are able to run with it and like really understand it. But again, that it should have some type of relevance to what you're asking. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
the trust is super important. Because oftentimes we get in our own way.
Right.
And when you start doubting it, you're doubting yourself, you're doubting your growth, you're doubting your abilities. It's an easy thing to get caught up in, but it's
Right.
really important, especially when you're starting, oh, I got this sensation from nowhere. Where'd that come from? Don't try to rationalize it. Just accept it. Say, this is
Mm-hmm.
intuition. This is some psychic information from my guides, from source. Um, and accept it. It might not be life changing or a big deal, but it's there. It's information, and it's a sign that you're growing in your abilities.
And just to add to that too, a lot of times when you receive information, right, we're always going to have thoughts that are going to be nervous or make us feel uncomfortable. If when you are really tuning into information that is coming from a higher consciousness, there should be a sense of peace when you receive that information. That doesn't mean that it's a justification for negative behavior, right? But what that basically means is if I know that my job is going to change soon and I should start looking for a different one, there should be a sense of calm if you know that's coming from a knowing versus, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. Things are not going to work out. I'm going to lose my house. And this is one thing after another. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's kind of the same thing with like that rabbit hole we can fall down of that doubt. Um,
right.
and in the beginning, don't give it too much stock. Yes, it's intuitive information, but it's not like a huge deal. It's not going to ruin your life or something.
Right.
And if it is something that's not that positive, take it as a potential of what could happen. And maybe just it's a little bit of like a, hey, be careful, this could potentially happen. What can I do now to prevent that from happening? Because a lot of times this information is here to guide us, to help us avoid things that we don't want to experience. And that's why it's there, so we can thank it. We can say thank you for warning me of that, so that I don't go down that path. Because the future is flexible and we can change it. And a lot of times these readings and this information is really helpful so that we can prevent things from happening that we don't want to happen or experience.
And I like how you added that too about thank you for the experience. That is something you really want to make sure you do practice as you are learning how to develop your spiritual abilities, which is having that act of gratitude too, as well. So just to reinforce like the grace that you need to have for yourself. So the patience you need to have with yourself and the ability to breathe in between, okay, this is working really great today. Why isn't it working tomorrow? Versus the thank you to my teachers, whoever they're going to end up being for you, because everybody has different ones, for showing up for me every day and for helping me along this journey. Because that'll, again, reinforce the idea of gratitude and what you need to do to be happy with what you're working with.
Absolutely. And that gratitude is really powerful. And it also helps, I think, in my opinion, my experience, with the doubt. It's hard to doubt things when you're feeling grateful.
Exactly.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well said.
Okay, wonderful. So our next question is, how can individuals recognize and develop these psychic gifts within themselves? I feel like we kind of touched on that a little bit already. Let's
So
dive
this,
into it a bit deeper.
yeah, I mean, you don't have to do the reading exercise. A lot of times it's the act of repetition, right? So if you're in a situation and you notice that right before, trying to think of like, okay, personal experience, but easier way to do it. When I was younger, I used to get very, very sad or get like a very extreme emotion to something 2 or 3 days before it would happen. And for a long time, my mom thought I was just having fits, or sorry about that. I would, just pull a fit or think that I'm going to hold this for the rest of this time. I apologize about that. Reminder to slow down. But again, I would have these reoccurring feelings before something would actually occur. And when that did happen, I started taking note of it to just remind myself of, okay, maybe I need to pay attention to something. Or maybe when I am really getting this excited feeling like, oh my God, I'm Superwoman and the world's oyster is like opening up to me and I have all these great opportunities, to take that to heart and recognize that that is a real thing, right? So when I'm looking forward to something, it's knowing that what I am experiencing is actually happening. What I'm experiencing is valid. Now, how do I go verify the information I'm receiving? And the more you do that, the more you start to trust yourself. And the more you start to acknowledge that, hey, I do actually have a gift, or hey, I do actually have a connection to something I didn't think I was. And then you can find other people that are like-minded. And as you start being open with yourself to that, your energy is going to naturally reflect that, to start bringing in a community that is reflective of where your skill set is at that moment, a little bit behind you, and people that are well beyond you, so that you can help people that were before you, right? Because we still have to have that act of gratitude and give a purpose to what our gifts are. And then find other people that are ahead of us to then try and mimic what they're doing, to know that, okay, when my ear pops, hey, 2 other people have that same thing. Okay, maybe that means something. Or, oh, I dreamt about fish 3 days in a row. Maybe my clairsentience is going to have a kick up or start to develop a little further. So maybe there's things I can look forward to, or find other people that have similar experiences to work that way. I mean, granted, you can always just like find me on Mysticsense and I'll help you determine that. But in a very serious way, just recognize that what's happening to you more than once is typically something to pay attention to. And it's the same way if you get a good piece of information. If 3 people that are unrelated to you and are related to the situation have the same opinion, it's usually the truth, right? So, little things to keep in mind.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned the community aspect. We had mentioned that in a previous podcast as well, is that there are communities out there, groups of people that are specifically focused on spiritual development and
Right.
psychic development. Especially on Facebook, there's so many Facebook groups and there's so many
Yes.
Reddit groups. You can find a big community of people who are all trying to do the same thing. They're all
Right.
trying to develop spiritually, develop their psychic gifts, their clairsentience, their clear cognizance, clairvoyance. And connecting with these groups, especially in the beginning, can be a really powerful experience because it
Absolutely.
helps you grow in that group setting.
Right. And
Hmm.
that just again to remind, like a friendly reminder, if you don't resonate with everything that's in the group, you have the right to walk away. Right? You don't have to stay stuck in that particular community if you feel that things are not resonating the way they should with you. And continue to do that exploration and that discovery to figure out where you feel the most comfortable with other like-minded individuals. Because again, it's not one size shoe or one shoe size fits all ever. It
Right.
you know, so
Yes. And these groups are not even limited just to psychic development. I know a lot of like more religious type groups that are all
mm-hmm.
about spiritual development. And that's again a personal thing. We're not here to tell you what to believe in, but if
Right.
you do have a belief system or you're religious yourself, you can look into the more spiritual sides, the more psychic side of your religious beliefs. And a lot of religions have them, not just a few, but a lot. You'd be surprised how much mysticism there is in a lot of different religions. Um,
Right.
and then you can have more of a faith-based support system for spiritual development as well.
That's a really wonderful point.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so go find the groups,
Yes,
whether
right.
they're just spiritual or new age, or if they're religious, or even just a couple friends that you can do this with. And the practice makes perfect, so practice with your friends as well. Um, So yes, and then connect with Lillibeth on Mystic Sense too to get one-on-one guidance with your development as well. So let me see. I almost lost. I think I found my. I lost
No
my
worries.
place. Can you share examples or stories that illustrate the experiences of clairvoyance and clairaudience?
Sure. Do
I
you want a
don't.
personal experience or do you want like a generalized so people can
Um,
understand better?
First, I don't want to limit us to just clairvoyance and clairaudience. We can just be senses. Um,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think personal experiences are more like I feel like people relate to them better because they actually happen to someone.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna actually give you two different experiences that I've had. One when I first started actually really connecting to what I'm working with. I want to say I was about 13 or 14 years old. Yeah, 13 or 14 years old when it ended up happening. I kept smelling cigarettes. And for me personally, I don't smoke them. I think, no offense to anybody that likes to smoke them, it is not my smell. I do not like it at all. So if you come into my home or wherever I'm living, and if you smell cigarettes, it's like, oh boy, somebody outside must have been smelling it. At the time, I was in a bathroom and I'd just gotten out of the shower. And my bathroom's at the far end of where I was living. And there was no windows in the area. There's no way that there could have been someone smoking around it. But I kept getting this strong, strong smell of cigarettes. At that point, I knew I had some type of gift because I've been doing it then for, I mean, that's what, 6 years? Very bad at math. But I've been doing it long enough to know, like, okay, if I'm getting something weird like that, it means something. But I never knew that you could smell spirit. I didn't know you could smell people that passed on. But I kept doing that, and I kept hearing the Yankees. I'm like, the Yankees? Like Yankee Doodle Dandy? It can't be Yankees, because I didn't realize it was a sports team, because clearly I was under a rock. But I started focusing on it a little bit more and trying to understand what that was. And then I started hearing this popping noise. And again, I wasn't familiar because I wasn't a huge sports fan. I liked the Patriots and I liked, watching football, but any other sports didn't exist to me. I hear the popping, and then I started asking my mom, I'm like, hey, I keep smelling cigarettes. I keep hearing this popping. I keep hearing the words Yankee. I'm like, what is going on? And she's like, oh my God, that's your grandpa. I'm like, huh? She's like, yeah, that's your papa. He died right before you were born. He used to love you. His name is Gramps. I was like, okay. So then I go to sleep that night and I start dreaming about him. And I like to draw in my free time. So I started sketching him out so I could actually understand exactly who it was. Because I had no other way to explain to my mom who he was. Because it wasn't like I was getting more information. It's just this, like, portly looking guy that keeps making this type of sound in my ear. Keeps yelling at the Yankees. And I don't know why they're, like, not hitting the run that they're supposed to hit. And I keep smelling this stinking smell of cigarettes, and I could not make it go away until I finally learned to calm down. Sat down with my mom, like, this is her, and she's like, "Oh my God, that's your Gramps." Shows me an actual picture of him, and then starts going through this whole process of like, okay, he was there, he died of cancer, he smoked a lot of cigarettes. This is probably why you don't like the cigarettes. Just try and talk to him when you go to sleep. And I was very fortunate to have a mom that was always like, "Oh my God, I'm scared. I'm hearing people in my room." She's like, "Well, what are they saying? Do they have a message? Are we going to win the lottery? Can you ask them what the numbers are?" Like, going through that, just like joke about it a little bit, but to have that support go through there and just to, again, use those type of gifts all at once to then try and communicate with them when I was sleeping. Because when I was sleeping, your brain shut off. So I was able to communicate with them a little bit better, ask them to come down before I actually went to sleep, which is probably a good practice we can go on to in like 2 seconds. But go through there. And long story short, I was able to communicate with them and in a very young way, ask him who he was, why does he like the Yankees, and what the heck is a run. So that was fun, but that kind of opened me up to understand that you can smell things and you can taste things. Because then fast forward to later years where I didn't realize exactly what energy was. I just knew it was always there, and I knew that everybody has a lot all the time. And if somebody doesn't, it means that they're either going somewhere or they're changing, and the changes they're making, they're kind of resistant to. Right. So as I started doing that, I started understanding that there were different religions and then the different people coming through. And I was praying every night. When I say pray, I mean saying, "Hey, whoever's listening, really appreciate everything you're doing. If you could do it in a way I could understand it without my ear popping off my head, I'd really appreciate it. So whatever it is you want me to do with it, just show me how I need to do it." And I started getting the smell of like violets in this almost amber type of smell. And I didn't know what it was. And I kept seeing this really, really beautiful crimson color. So I'm like, okay, let me meditate on that. When I say meditate, it just means I'm driving and I'm blasting music and I'm like, hey, I wonder if that's a thought. And all of a sudden, boom, I'll get a little idea of something. And as I started working with that, I started understanding that to be claircognizance, right? Which is just this random knowing that there isn't really any rhyme or reason to having. But as I started focusing on it and focusing on that smell, focusing on these little images of like a cat coming through, then this beautiful cloak of all these different feathers, Googling a little bit, I'm like, oh, your name's Freya. Okay. I didn't think I could talk to people like that. That can't be real, right? And then that doubt comes through and you start going through that and then you start calming yourself down. And then one of the practices I like to do right before I go to sleep is I'll ask myself a question I want to answer to when I wake up. So if I sit there for a couple seconds, it's like, okay, I want to know who Freya is. Please show me Freya. I start seeing all these different symbols. I start drawing the symbols down so I can start like looking up in encyclopedias, because trying to reverse image search it was not happening. Everything came up with like the female or male sign. But you start looking at it, and then I was fortunate to find a couple people on Facebook, funny enough, that were into what I later on found out to be Norse mythology. And then who Freya was, who she works with, why you want to work with her, and what her goal is with the people that are descendants of her or whatever way they work for it. So I'm not sure if I answered your question directly without going on a complete tangent, but basically it's where do you feel that sensation coming from, whether it's claircognizance, which is that immediate knowing, the clairsentience, which is like the smelling or the tasting, the clairaudience or your ability to hear or the ear popping, clairvoyance, being able to see. But that's quite a few.
There's so many different ones. That's interesting that you're into the Norse pantheon because I am very much involved with heathenry and Asatru and things like that. So that's very interesting. Like,
absolutely. Yeah, no, it's incredible too.
Yeah, I had a similar experience like when I started the practice of that path, but I feel like that's off topic of it.
If you don't mind me asking, was it with the Igor or Igor? I'm hearing like the I sound with you quite a bit.
Oh, I had an experience with that rune.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. It was I get spirit scratches. So like physical scratches on my body. Like I'll wake up with a big scratch on my back or something.
Yeah.
And one time that rune was scratched into the middle of my back when I woke up.
Have you tried working with spirit in order to get it so it's in a way a little less painful?
It's not painful.
Oh, well, that's good. Okay.
It was a message from Jormungandr actually, because I meditated on it and I was like, why am I getting this symbol? Because usually I don't get, and it has stopped mostly, and that's why it was such a strange thing because I used to get them a lot, and then I did do work and it stopped, and then I suddenly got one, And I was like, okay, this is a symbol, so I can't ignore it because it's not just a scratch. And I meditated on it, because like I need to know who is doing this thing first of all, because
Right, of course.
and we're gonna talk about protection and negative things later
Yeah.
on. And that's the first thing in my head is, okay, someone's doing this because it's a symbol. It's not just a random scratch, and I can't reach that location, and I know my dog didn't do it. Um, so I did meditate. That was my first thing. I asked my guides, my spirit team, who is doing this? Can you give me insight? Why are they trying to contact me this way? Because I don't remember my dreams.
Okay.
So if I remembered my dreams, I probably wouldn't get them because that's an easier way to communicate with me. But I tend to be like I don't remember my dreams. I don't want to
Hmm.
remember my dreams, and
Right.
I'm shielded a lot, so like I'm not really necessarily open when it's not on my terms.
Yep.
Um, and I feel like that's why the message came across that way, like that direct way. Um, but no, it was a mess. It was basically a message of transformation and changes, and to embrace the changes, even if they're chaotic. Um, and I was like, okay, I meditated, I communicated. I actually, funny story, because it was from Jormungandr, and I did the research with the Eor rune, and it's his rune. Even though I don't work with that
The
type
big thing.
of
Yeah.
Futhark, I work with the Elder Futhark, not that one, but
Okay.
it's adjacent enough.
Yep.
So I was like looking at it from Elder Futhark, and I'm like, what is this Issa? Is it, Gaba? It's like, no, it just doesn't. And then I looked at the other Futharks, the other runes, and if you're completely not aware of what I'm talking about, so I read runes, and there are many types of runes, not just one type. There's many different types of runic alphabets. They're all based around the Germanic languages, but they have varying symbols. So they're not all just the same 24 runes. Like there's other variant symbols. And this symbol that appeared on me was one of the symbols from the other rune sets that I was not familiar with, but
Okay.
that is adjacent to the ones that I use.
I gotcha.
A funny story. So Jormungandr's the world serpent, and you see I have this
Wow.
tattoo, and
Yep.
I had already had this tattoo for completely different reasons. And
Mhm.
then I was getting these like messages from the world serpent, and I'm like, wow, that's interesting because look
Yep.
what's on my arm, you know? Like,
And I love
and
that you're bringing that up too, because like it's just crazy how like the world serpent. That's like what I'm referring to with the universe consciousness, right? So just to go back with your earlier mention about religion and everything else, it's don't get hung up on what the name of it is, whether it's a chakra or the world serpent or whatever it is you're focusing on. Whatever resonates for you is what you need to stay on. Like that is so 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 important.
yes, definitely. And I think it's the same with the divination tools. Like
Yep.
a rune is a rune. It doesn't matter if it's a rune that I work with or not.
Right.
It's still a message. Um, and it doesn't really matter because it's all energy in the
Right.
bottom line. And
Same thing
so
with
like
tarot cards.
what?
Same thing with tarot cards. Like I got my Angel Oracle card and tarot card certification back when Doreen Virtue was still around and kicking, and it was just more so that I could go work at a psychic shop that was down the street from me, and they said you needed a certification. That was a whole thing, but when you're sitting down, the meanings behind like the Tower versus the Sun card and the Lover's card are always going to be dependent upon the situation in front of you. It's not a finite Tower's change or anything like that either. So just
Right.
again, you got to really, really trust yourself and focus on what resonates with you and where it does, so that you can understand the truth behind the message instead of what the imagery is behind the symbol.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the energy is more important than, the image or the card.
Exactly.
Every time. Like energy does not lie. And if you're having a
Right.
problem interpreting a certain way of energy, like just use a different method. It's all
Right.
the same energy.
Exactly.
And like with the Jormungandr thing, it's like a lot of people fear Jormungandr because the Norse myth is like he kills Thor or something. I
Right.
think he kills Thor. Yeah, I should know these things. No, and it's funny, but it's interesting because I was already working with Loki's children,
Yep.
and he is one of Loki's children. So it was
Right.
interesting how it came full circle, and it was all about for me was that transformation and that change, even if it's a chaotic way. Don't be afraid to create the chaos, because
Absolutely.
it's necessary to get out of the stagnant situation, you know.
Yeah.
And that was why it came through in that way, because I really needed to take that lesson to heart at that time. Um, so
Makes sense.
yeah, it's kind of funny. It's a little bit of off topic, but that's an experience like, and I don't think it's necessarily like a psychic ability, but like sometimes if you don't listen to spirit, I guess the message is that it will come through regardless.
This is true. I mean, that,
Yeah,
not to go down another rabbit hole, but very quickly. Um, psychic ability again just kind of just goes into what your senses are, right? Because that's all psychic ability really is what are you tuned into? And everybody has every sense. So the idea that spiritualism is there versus having your intuition active or doing anything like that, it's all interchangeable and all one and the same, right? Because spirit connects to you how you're able to interpret them. So no matter what, you are always tuned in. It is great to have shields up and have the boundaries because you do need them, but you're always connected to spirit. You're always connected to source. You're always connected to whoever it is you believe is your creator. So,
yeah.
yeah,
I don't think it matters what name or what image,
exactly.
what
Yep,
theology. It's like if it resonates to you and that's your creator, that's what matters. Um,
exactly.
but I definitely agree. And yeah, if you are ignoring it, and like I am someone that I used to have problems controlling my abilities because it was on all the time and I was receiving all this information all the time and it was overwhelming. And then I started shutting it off
Yeah,
because it was too much. And so I learned how to kind of turn it off and then tune in and tune out
right,
because I kind of had to. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're always tuned out of it and messages are always coming, eventually they're going to show up in a way that you can't ignore them. Like you
right.
understand them, but you can't ignore them. And for me, that's getting physical scratches like on my body. I've actually seen them appear sometime before, and it's so weird because my skin will turn like red, like kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
rash, and then I'll get like this burning sensation, and then like the scratch will appear like in the middle of it, and then like the redness goes away, and then it just leaves like the mark. Um, it's so cool. It's not it's like it was scary at first, but when I understood it, then it was like, okay, this is okay. It's a form of communication, and it's not deep and it's not hurting and they go away in a couple days. But that's the thing is other people angel numbers are one example of
Yep,
this. It's a form of communication. It's the best way that message is going to come through to you.
right.
Sometimes people have another person, a stranger, walk up to them and say, "Hey, I just really need to tell you this thing." Um, and that spirit using them to communicate that message in a way that's going to get to you. And it can
Or
happen
hearing
lots.
the name over and over again too.
Yes.
So like if
Yeah,
you have
that.
somebody that passed over named Tom, right? And then hearing somebody Tom at the grocery store, then Tom at the, you know, gas station, get whatever it is. It's just again that repetitiousness of whatever the sign is to you. That's what you have to pay attention to.
Yes.
And again, if you
Yeah.
have any questions on any signs that you're receiving or a different way to interpret it, I'm always on the site. I'm more than happy to help you work through it.
Yes. Excellent. And dreams are a good one too. But
Yes,
if you don't remember your dreams, that's not necessarily going to help you very much.
this is true.
In my case. Um,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
a lot of people do remember their dreams, so it works well. Um, but yes, excellent. I think we went down quite a rabbit hole with that, but we have time, so it's okay.
Wonderful.
We're making good time today. Excellent. So those are our experiences illustrating clairvoyance and clairaudience. I don't think scratches are necessarily clairvoyance. um, okay, so our next section is why is psychic protection important for those exploring psychic abilities, and what techniques can individuals use? And this is a super important question.
Yes. So I again have unpopular opinion coming at you live from Lillibeth on Mysticsense. Um, I don't believe you need to go through a lot of work in order to protect yourself. You don't need to do a salt circle. If that's really what resonates with you, go ahead. But it's been my experience that before you go into anything, there's two things you need to do. The first one, right? Well, three, is focusing on what you're trying to receive in terms of information, right? So for me, if I want to know information, I focus on my hot pink or whatever it is. When I am in that hot pink zone, I know that whatever guides are there to protect me automatically because everything I do, I'm doing in a manner of being helpful, of being safe, and being in a receptive energy. So the messages I'm meant to receive are the only messages I'm receiving. I'm not open to any other type of negativity or anything that's going to derail me from achieving my purpose in my life path. Right? So no matter what the experience is, it's there for either a lesson or for a happy experience. But don't always associate happy or sad type of experience is what you're doing, because you're kind of attracting whatever that opposite energy is, because you need an equal and opposite reaction in order to get the message. So first, take a moment to calm yourself down, right? Or focus on whatever it is, whether that's tapping, whether that's reading something like you mentioned, or focusing on the color. Then I call down whoever my guides are. I don't always know the names of my guides. I know how they refer to me, or I'll know things that are referencing to other people, but not all guides give you names, right? Just know that the presence that you're sensing is there for your highest good. That is it, right? I don't acknowledge anything else that is there, because anything else that is there is not really there. Because whatever is there to serve me on my life path and my purpose. And at the end of it, when I'm ready to close out, there's 2 different ways to close out. For me personally, I enjoy having a little bit of openness to everything, or just being slightly tuned into it, because if you know me on a personal level, I forget my keys like it's going out of style. So if I'm tuned in, I'm not forgetting them. If I need to go do something, I know that I'm protected and I'm not alone, or I feel like I am not as anxious as I normally am when I'm not connected to whatever spirit or higher senses. So I always have that sense of grounding with me. So I, again, like to just be a little bit tuned in all the time. But with that being said, you can ask them to keep you in enough so that if I need to open up the channel all the way to hear whatever direct message it is, I can just say, oh, my ear is popping. Okay, what is it you want to tell me, Spirit? And then allow the message to come in. Or you can be fully tuned out. And it's just as simple as saying, hey, Spirit, can you help me tune in? Hey, Spirit, can you please close the channel until I absolutely need to know something? And then they should allow you to get to a vibration that's, comfortable for you to sit at, so you don't feel like you're dying from and like when I say dying, I mean like very lethargic or very out of breath or very tired, like, oh my God, I need chocolate and I need a good nap. It's that normal state for you, and not hearing all that chatter or seeing all that chatter or thinking all that chatter. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's interesting you said that about being open a little bit. I feel like I am learning that I should probably open up a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am one of those people that I do close it off when I'm not using it, because I don't want to know everybody's business all the time.
Right, and
I
that's
don't
the
want
great
to
part of it. You
yeah.
don't have to be a mind reader, right? Because being psychic and mind readers are 2 different things, but at the end of the day, you read energy. But you don't always have to have that coming at you, right? You can just have just enough so that you are still doing what you need to do without it disrupting your day. Because if it's getting to a place of disrupting your day, it's not happening in a healthy way, and you need to start revisiting what the purpose of it is. And the whole life purpose, right? Just really quick on that, is to be in a state of balance. So what is that balance for you? That might be being completely cut off, right? Because for you, it's overwhelming. Or for me, it could be overwhelming one day, and I'm just like, listen, I can't. I gotta take a step back. But if it's not, and you continue to allow yourself to grow in your gift and to allow Spirit to come to and through you when you are ready, when you're in that state of receptivity, and when you're in that, okay, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm here to help, I'm here to serve, I'm here to do what I need to do, then it will come through you, and you'll be in a state of peace and a state of calm, always. So,
Yes. Thank
yeah.
you for sharing. That's super important. I do feel like it's important to be in control of the channel, as well as, especially with mediumship, if you're working with spirits or spirit. Um, Very important to be in control of that communication.
And
However
just
that
know,
looks to you.
yeah,
Hmm?
sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, however that looks to you, because it looks different for different people. Different people do it differently. And it doesn't matter how you do it. It just matters that you're doing it in a way that works for you. But it's
Right.
important to do it, to be in control of who you're communicating with, when you're communicating, and how that communication is happening.
And just remember, though, you are always in control, because when you're really working with your guides or spirit, or again, spirit, I'm just going to stick to spirit, guides, or angels, just because it's pretty simple to understand instead of getting into fairies and all that other good stuff. Um, when you're communicating with them, there is always a line of respect, right? Which is where our gratitude comes from. So thank you for providing me the information. But they are all understanding and receptive to the fact of when you need them to stop, they will stop. So if you're in a position where you feel like they're not stopping, go seek professional help, because it might be something else. But
Yes.
yeah.
And by professional help, are you referring to like a spiritual worker or like mental health assistant?
I would say I'm referring more to mental health, right? Because
Okay.
there is a fine line between the spiritual work and the mental health side of it. And we want to make sure whatever we are doing, it is happy and healthy for our situation and not doing something to deter from your state of balance or your state of safety, right? So at
Yeah.
any point in time you feel like something you're doing is not safe or not, in line with what you're trying to accomplish in your life on a positive way that's not hurting or harming yourself or those around you, um, you stick with it. But if it's doing something along those lines of harming yourself or somebody else, go get help, because that's not what the spiritual practice is, no matter how you resonate with it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, you should again feel like you're in control of the interactions
Right.
and the situations. You should feel like this is a positive exchange, and that you can stop it if you need to, or you can take a break if you need to. And if you
Right.
don't feel that way, if you feel like it's out of control, do seek professional help, because mental health is not part of spirituality. I mean, there is, again, it is a fine line, and we are not mental health professionals, so we cannot assist with that. But
Right.
do seek help, because some people, they do need help, and sometimes it can be confusing for someone experiencing things that they think it's spiritual and it's really not spiritual, and maybe they need like medication or something, and we can't speak about that
Right.
because we don't work in that
Correct.
industry. But it is important. It's very vital to get that kind of help, that professional help from a licensed mental health
Practitioner.
professional or
Yeah.
doctor, if you feel like you need that.
Right.
Yeah,
And there's no shame in getting help either. So just
yes,
always remember that, whether you're getting spiritual help, psychic help, mental health help, or just talking to a friend, there is never any shame in going to somebody else in order to find that help or balance.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And like I personally went to therapy for many years, and my therapist was very affirming and very supportive of my spiritual beliefs. So you
Oh, that's
don't have to
beautiful.
feel like getting mental health help is going to take you away from your spiritual practice, because it's
Right.
not. A good therapist or a good doctor is going to support your spiritual beliefs and your religious beliefs and your practices, as long as these are, again, balanced and they're
Exactly.
benefiting your life. Hmm.
Precisely.
Sorry about the barking.
No worries.
I was trying not to have him go down, but he threw a fit, so I knew he was going to do that. Okay, so our next question
No worries.
is what visualization exercises are effective for shielding against negative energies? So how can we do exercises that help us shield against negative energies? Like, let's say someone is feeling like there's an entity that they've been talking to that isn't really positive, and like, what do they do at that point? How do we shield against that? How do we protect ourselves?
So me, what I do is I will focus on my energy, and I will ask one of my guides. Again, I don't know the name of my guides, but I will call down whatever guides I have. And I have a couple grandparents that passed away that I'll call on. And I'll just say, if this energy is not for my highest good, please remove it from my energy. Thank you for taking that time to protect me and to protect my energy. Right. And then what I'll do as a secondary measure, I, was raised Catholic when I was really young. So I do believe in like the Hail Marys and everything else. I'll say a Hail Mary. But I also like to picture a yellow cloud or a yellow, it's almost like a wetsuit going on from my feet. I go from my toes to my heels to my ankle, all the way back up behind my calf, behind my knee. And then I continue to imagine this particular yellow color going all the way around me. And as they're doing it, what they're trying to do is transmute or to regulate the energy that's around me that I don't feel is positively serving my life path, and allowing it to shift that energy so that particular energy can serve its purpose however it's meant to, without harming my purpose or my particular experience with that, and taking the energy that I'm having that put me at a dis-ease into a state of ease by knowing that the energy is serving a purpose to help either teach me a lesson on better ways to ground myself, or understanding that that particular energy should be there to teach me something that I might be nervous about learning, but I'm meant to help understand and move forward with. Because my lesson might not be a lesson for me to know, because I do work as a clairvoyant and I do work as a medium, but for me to then translate to somebody else. So it's really just about going back to that point of knowing that I have trust with my spiritual team that I work with regularly to protect me in my practice on a daily basis, because I'm here to do the work that they want me to follow through with. Does that make sense?
Yes, I like that you mentioned that sometimes the message is not for you, but it's for someone else.
Hmm.
And that definitely happens if you're working, especially in a professional capacity,
Right.
because Spirit knows that you're here to help transmit these messages to others.
Right.
And so Spirit will use you as a conduit, maybe when you're not with the client. So that can happen. And that's a boundary thing too, is like when like I said, I tap in and I tap out. Um, so spirit messages can come to me, and I'm very specific when I open up that I only want messages for people that are present in the room with me,
Right.
because you could get messages for someone that you know, like a friend, just randomly, and
Hmm.
you're like, I can't call them right now, they're on vacation or something.
Right.
um so you do want to think about, is this message, is this energy for me, or is this for someone else, or is this someone else's energy that I'm tapping into?
Right.
That can happen with a lot of empaths too. They can pick up other people's problems because they feel that energy, and they just kind of absorb it, or they connect with it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I
That's
do really, huh?
sorry, no, and that's again really important, like we mentioned at the very beginning of this podcast, especially for my empaths. You want to make sure that you're learning the difference between your sensations and the ones coming through to you. And a lot of the things that I've known that's made me successful in doing what I'm doing is understanding what the physical sensation is that I'm personally experiencing, so that I know exactly what my body's doing to react to it. So I know when I own that energy versus when I'm receiving that energy from someone else to then carry over. So that's one thing, again, really learn to be in tune with yourself, because once you understand yourself, you will understand all the energy around you and be better able to basically transcribe it.
Yes, that's a good point. Because that's, as a medium, especially, that's kind of the job, is just to
Right.
be the medium. You're in the middle between spirit and the person.
Right.
So you do get a lot of stuff, and it's not always your stuff, and it's not always stuff you
Right.
should hold on to. And I really like the color yellow. I was actually taught to use yellow as a cleansing color,
Oh, well,
um,
there you go.
which is interesting that they
Mhm.
taught us that yellow is for cleansing, and blue is for charging, and purple is for like protection. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
I know, and I've heard that deep blue, like dark blue, is also for protection. Um, Sorry, he's barking more.
No, no, it's okay.
But yeah, I really like that because the yellow is really good for cleansing. And there's lots of other things you can do as well, like we've been saying throughout the whole podcast,
Mhm.
that there's not one single way. Not every method's going to work for everybody. There's a
Right.
million methods because there's a million people doing it differently, and it all
Right.
works, but it's not all going to work for the same person.
No.
Um, so some other methods that you can try. I have tried a shielding method of starting at my core, wherever
Hmm.
your core is, whether that's in your stomach area, your heart center. Start in your core and make like a little ball of your energy, and like harden it like a
Okay.
rock. Like you can imagine. It depends on the elements you resonate with. Like I,
Sure.
I resonate with like ice. So I think of it like water freezing into a hard ice ball.
Okay.
Some people might think of like a lava becoming a rock. You could do many different things, whatever you resonate with, and you're just gonna do that over and over again. You're gonna add another layer of that energy and harden it, and another layer and harden it, and you want to get around like 3 to 6 feet outside of your body.
Okay.
And you just do that process, kind of like those nesting dolls, like one fits on top of the other, and you go bigger and bigger and bigger. And what that's gonna do is it pushes all the energy outwards, from the center outwards, so that all that stuff you don't want, especially if you think you've been working with something that is not good
Hmm.
for you, it's going to push that energy outwards and then seal it off outside of you. Um, and that's the shielding method that I have used personally to protect myself, keep myself safe, so nothing else can come in without my explicit permission. And it also gets rid of anything that's already in my aura or in my energy that I don't want there anymore. Or that's not part of me if it's not mine. Because it's my
Right.
energy that's using this, so it's going to be, it's going to be me, right? Um, and then, that is one method that I've used. And then if you want, you can, do some cleanse, any basic cleanse, sound cleansing, smoke cleansing. You can use Florida water, you can use holy water, visualization, whatever you use. You just do that afterwards to just kind of remove the stuff that you've pushed out of you. Um, and that's one visualization exercise you could do for protection.
Mm-hmm.
especially if you feel like you have the stuff in your aura. Another one you could do is to call on the archangels. Archangel Michael is great for protection. I've used that quite a bit when I was working in a shop. I had asked Archangel Michael just to surround me with his flaming violet shield of protection, and I just imagine bright purple flames around me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you can do the same with your spirit guides or source, whatever you believe in. Call on them, ask them for protection, ask them for cleansing, ask them for help. And it's always good to return that energy, but like an
Mm-hmm.
offering of some kind, some food or something, um, because it's not one way; it's a relationship. But those are a few methods that you could use to protect yourself, especially if you think you have exposed yourself to something, or even going into this if you're afraid, because fear is just going to attract more things to be afraid of. So you really
Right.
don't want to be afraid. It's okay to be like, you know, I lost my train of thought,
It's okay.
but I'm
Can I
trying
just
to
add to
say,
that as you're saying that?
uh yeah,
I
go
want
ahead.
to remind everybody too. The spiritual game is not a money game, right? So I love that you're saying about giving that gratitude back to them, right, or to whoever you're working with. You don't always need to give, at least in my experience, a physical representation of what your gratitude is. Sometimes that gratitude is just the consistency in showing up to do the work with that particular entity or that spirit that you're trying to do the work with. So for me, while I do say my thank yous, I'll light a candle if I go to church or if I go somewhere else to say thank you for everything that you've blessed me with. Part of that is just giving that time and that energy, right? Because you're giving that energy exchange to them to acknowledge and to promise and continue to walk forward in that promise that whatever information you're giving to me, however you are helping me, I promise to provide tenfold. And that to me is through the energy exchange that you do with other people. It's not always about the physical exchange for something. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
yeah, very true. And I've had experience with that where like the spirit has said, I just want you to be authentic. And a lot of
Right.
times they just want recognition.
Right.
They want you, whoever, and I say they meaning like whoever you're working with at that
Right.
time for that thing, they want you to, tell people, oh, I work with, Archangel
Right.
Michael, or, I work with the Jormungandr, whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever entity or deity you're working with, that saying that out loud publicly, that I work with so and so or so and so protects me, that in itself is gratitude. That's giving honor. That is giving that
Exactly.
energy.
Honor.
Yeah, and that's all they really want is
Right.
to be proud of your practice.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I feel like that got a little off topic slightly, but it's
Well, it's all part of it
okay.
though, with the psychic development and everything else. So, and it goes back to that same idea of we're in the universal consciousness and having to honor yourself and being grateful for yourself for allowing yourself to have that grace to go through understanding what it is you're really doing, right? Because again, the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things, I know I say that quite a bit, but one of the biggest things is just knowing that what you're doing does have a purpose. And sometimes we lose sight of that because we get derailed by, oh, I'm supposed to hear something, or oh, if I'm psychic, I'm really going to see something, and I should have been able to predict that I was going to stub my toe in 2 weeks. Like it's not always about that so much as it is about knowing that you are here to put energy behind what you're doing because we're all here to raise that universal consciousness or that vibrational level that we're all on to a higher degree. Because once we do that, that's when we're going to restart that sense of community, whether it's through spiritual communities or people that you know that just like apples or whatever it is. It's just that sense of interconnectedness in order to know that we are here to help and build and be one with each other. Not to sound, like a Akuna Matata over here, but you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's important because a lot of people lose sight of that. It's like you're not an
right,
island. There's lots of people doing this work, and there's lots of ways to do it. And
right,
again, what we've been saying this whole time, if one way doesn't work for you, that's okay because there's another way to do it.
exactly.
Wonderful. So our last question to kind of wrap
Mhm.
up tonight is, can you discuss energy clearing practices and how they contribute to psychic protection? I think I kind of very slightly scratched the surface on this with like the cleansing. So let's dive deeper into that, the energy clearing.
So I'm a firm believer in not clearing your energy, which again I know is unpopular opinion. I believe in what I call transmutation or the recycling of energy that is around you in order to serve a better purpose for you. So for me, if I have an experience with someone like, ugh, this person, I'm working in retail. All they did was come and complain. I was supposed to sell them a shirt. I showed them 4 different shirts, and this lady just kept yelling at me. They don't fit me, and it has to be the shirt. It can't be that she's looking at the wrong size. I don't want to deal with that. That's not my bag to deal with, right? And you might not think that that's a spiritual or psychic exchange, but you having that sense of knowing that, okay, here's the problem. I know how to fix it. How can I then walk that conversation through? How can I retain my energy to then help you have a better day? That's using your intuition, believe it or not, because your intuition is still connected to that emotion. So one of the things that I was taught early on was about cleaning your energy, right? So you're going to do these little circles to use Reiki to get the energy out of your surface, which is great. Sometimes you need that because it's just a little too much. But as I got older and as I started to understand what that is, I appreciate that dumping of her bad day onto me, because what I'm able to do is then take that energy, ask my guides to come through and say, how do I make this energy purposeful to myself? How do I make this energy purposeful to my life's charge or my life's job, so that I can walk forward in more strength and more vigor towards my end goal? And then that'll change. Sometimes it'll change from one color to a different. Other times it'll give me an opportunity to laugh about the situation and use that towards something, right? That's one train of thought, because you have to remember your spiritual abilities are connected to everything else that is in or out of balance. So if that's enough to kill your mood, figure out how to get your mood better. If eating a piece of food that just didn't sit right in your stomach, okay, how do I look at this as a way to grow from it versus a way to be stuck in that energy, right? Because again, that's something that you need to clear from your system. If you ate something that's not good for you, how am I going to do that? Well, it's reminding me to take a step back and to really tune into my body, because something's out of balance with my body, and to slow down. Because if you can't tell with how fast I speak, I need to slow down more. But it's a reminder to take a deep breath in, let it out, and then go forward. And then at the end of the day, like, because I'm somebody that likes to take a shower at the end of the day, I like to go in my shower, do my whole routine, like, wash your hair, put conditioner in it, do the whole thing. And as I feel the last bit of water that's dropping on me, I like to take a step and remind myself to be gratitude. So I'm grateful for all the energy that I experienced today. I'm grateful for it exiting my body for what's not serving me anymore. And I am grateful to the experiences the water is going to help me retain as it's washing off of me, to know that tomorrow I'm walking into a better version of what I did or did not do today. And that's it.
That's
Does that make
great.
sense?
Yeah, I've heard about transmutation before. I don't have much experience with it, but I've heard of
Yeah.
it, and it's very interesting, and it
Yeah.
makes sense because the law of conservation of energy says that energy cannot be destroyed nor created. So what can you do? You can change it. It just changes forms, right?
Yep.
So it does make sense to me that negativity could be changed into something more useful,
Right.
recycled. And I feel like there's lots of ways to do that as well. Again, it's
Absolutely.
everything. There's not one way. Um, but yeah, and I kind of mentioned earlier, with the shielding and then the cleansing after, to just kind of get rid of anything you don't want there. Now, it is important to know why you're removing the thing, I believe, because
Okay.
sometimes the stuff that you're trying to get rid of is actually internal, and it's things that you need to learn from, something
Right.
that you need to address the cause. You can't just get rid of negativity without addressing how it happened or where it came from. It's different if you're an empath and you're connecting to other people's problems, but
Right.
if it's your problem, clearing and clearing is not going to fix the problem without solving, finding the solution to the
Right.
cause. So that's important here as well. But one thing that kind of a rule of thumb that I use in my practice is, first you banish the thing. So if you have a problem, first you banish whatever it is. You get rid of it. Then you do the cleansing of it. You cleanse. You have to solve the problem, then you cleanse. You fix the results of it. And then the third step is the protection. And the reason I do it in that order, banish, cleanse, protect, is because the protection kind of seals you off to prevent more things from happening. So if
Yep.
you are protecting, you're sealing before you're cleansing, the negative stuff can't necessarily get out. Like putting a bubble around something. It's like, okay, whatever's in that bubble is going to be stuck in that bubble, right?
Right.
Whether it's good, bad, or other. And if you didn't get rid of the problem and you're sealing that bubble up with that protective shield, all that problem and that stuff is going to be stuck inside. Um,
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you banish it first. You get rid of the problem and then you cleanse it so it's all nice and clean. And then you protect as the last step to prevent anything else from coming in and happening. Um, and however you want to do that, there's like a million different ways. Research, Google, talk to people, get a session with Lillibeth on Mysticsense to learn how to do all of these things. But it's important to do it in that order. Get rid of the problem, then you cleanse it, and then you protect.
And I think it's so wonderful that we can have a discussion like this or a conversation, because I hear you and I can acknowledge exactly what you're doing, but then I can still stand true and be still authentic in what I believe, in where I may disagree with that particular practice and feel that everything is just supposed to go back to having a purpose, or, your act of cleansing is the act of acknowledgement, right? And knowing that there's supposed to be something there or it wouldn't be there. It's incredible how two people can do something so similar but so different at the same time, but then still walk in their own authenticity. So I think it's wonderful that you shared that. So thank you.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, and like I said, there's lots of different ways to think about it, and it's fine because it all gets you to the same place. However
Exactly.
you do it, yeah. And it's like I don't mind if that my way is not for everyone. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, and exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's how I do it, and that's how you do it. And there's lots of other ways to do it as well. And it's really just a great thing. So yeah,
It's true.
so I don't have anything else to say on that. Do you have anything else to share?
No, I mean, again, just come find me on the website. My name is Lillibeth, and I am here to help you with whatever is coming through. I'm not limited to just love or career or psychic development. But again, if you guys can take anything away from today's session, is one, Phoenix is absolutely awesome. Two, no matter what you are doing, know that there is some truth to it, right? And don't stop yourself as you're trying to develop your psychic gifts because you get stuck, right? There is no real ending to anything, is just a redirection. So just again, remember that the positive mindset will denote positive results, and positive just being something you can learn from, not necessarily, you're winning the lottery versus finding a new job.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lilibeth. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. And if you have anything you'd like to say to our viewers on any topic before we wrap up.
Nope, just again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So yeah, so go ahead and find Lilibeth on Mysticsense, and you can get all the guidance and get a reading. And yes, it's wonderful. We've had a great conversation here. So thank you so much for sharing all these great tips and advice on psychic development.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Yes, hope to see you soon. Bye.
Bye.